Week 14 notes. This is factoring trinomials. So our steps are right here, 1 through 5. And this, I would say, is probably the most important skill that you will learn all year in algebra. Something that will carry you through geometry, algebra 2, pre-calculus, calculus, and beyond. This skill is central in algebra, so you must learn it. But I'm just going to first start with an example and then walk through the steps. But if you want to write down those steps real fast, please do. Okay, I think that's a good thickness. All right. So our first example is n squared. Yeah, that's still a little bit thick here. N squared plus 10n plus 25. 3 terms. It's a trinomial. Our first step is to separate the first term into factors. The first term is the n squared. So we'll separate it into its factors. We have an n and an n. N times n is n squared. Step 2, we'll separate the last term into factors, considering negative numbers this time. That's very important. 25. Well, we have 1 and 25. And we also have 5 and 5. We've done this before, but now we're going to consider negative numbers too. What I mean by that is when we multiply, let's say, a -1 times a -25, we'll also get positive 25. You have to consider the sign in front of this last term as well. So make sure that you don't forget about that. Also, -5 times -5 equals positive 25. And with that, we have all of our factors of 25, including negative numbers. Step 3, identify the 2 factors of the last term, that's this, that add to the middle coefficient. Wow, okay, there's some vocabulary right there. The middle coefficient is this right here, 10 with the plus sign right in front of it. Make sure that you always include the sign in front of these numbers, plus 25, plus 10. But this coefficient is the number right in front of the middle term. So the middle term is the 10n, the coefficient is 10. So what we need to do is identify 2 factors. Which 2 of these right down here, which set of factors add to the middle coefficient? So which one of these adds to 10? Well, 1 plus 25, that doesn't. 5 plus 5, that does. So that will be our answer, or part of our answer. That will lead us to our answer. Okay. Now you're going to write your answer as a binomial times a binomial. So this should look like this: a binomial times a binomial. And if you remember how to multiply a binomial times a binomial, you multiply the first 2 terms, right, or the first 2 in front to get the squared term there. So you're going to have an n there and an n there. So your first n is going to go there, and then your other one's going to go in front here. So this isn't too hard of a step, but you do need to know how to do at least this much. And then we have a positive 5 and a positive 5 here. So we put that in as our numbers. And that is our answer. But we still need to multiply out our answer to check to make sure it's accurate. So what does that mean? It means that we have to take n times n, which is n squared, Then we do n times 5, which is 5n. And then we do 5 times n, which is 5n again. And then we do 5 times 5. Remember this? Double distribution. And then we have a 25 here. And then when we simplify this, right here, this term in the middle, 5n plus 5n, we get 10n. And in fact, that does lead us to our answer, n squared plus, or not our answer, but what we started with, n squared plus 10n plus 25. That does, or actually should put the check mark up here. That does check. But our answer is really right here. This is just the check. Okay. Let's try another one over here, number 2. We've got x squared plus 8x plus 15. All right. So first step is, again, separate the first term into factors, x and x. Then we're going to separate the last term into factors, considering negative numbers. We have 1 and 15. We have 3 and 5. And we also have negative 1 and negative 15, and negative 3 and negative 5. Now we have to ask ourselves which one of these adds to the middle term of 8. 1 plus 15? No. 3 plus 5? Yes. And that is going to lead us to our answer. Then we're going to have to write our answer as a binomial times a binomial. So we have a binomial where x is going to go right here, and then our other x is going to go right there. We have positive 3 and positive 5. And we should be done, but we do have to check to make sure that we have the right answer. So I'm going to distribute this x to that x and then to the 5. I'm going to get x squared and then plus 5x. And then I'm going to distribute that 3 to the x and then the 3 to the 5. And I'm going to get 3x there. And then 3 times 5 is 15. And yes, in fact, because 5x plus 3x is 8x, we get x squared plus 8x plus 15. And is that what we started with? It is indeed. So this is the correct answer right there. Checking your answer is really great. Plus getting this extra practice here is very important. Okay. Third one. K squared minus 7k plus 12. Okay. Let's separate the first term into factors. Separate the last term into factors. 1 and 12, 2 and 6. We have 3 and 4. And then we have all of the negative versions of those. So we have negative 1 and negative 12, negative 2 and negative 6, and maybe you already see the answer, negative 3 and negative 4. Which set here adds to negative 7? And if you picked negative 3 plus negative 4, or negative 3 minus 4, same thing, you'd be correct. So what we do is we write our answer in the form of a binomial times a binomial. We have a k here, that goes there, and then a k here, that goes right there. It's always going to look like that when you have 1 as your leading coefficient. But then you have a negative 3 and a negative 4. You can put the -4 here and the -3 there. It doesn't really matter. But now we have to check to make sure that our answer is correct by distributing it. So k times k is k squared. K times -4 is -4k. And then -3 times k is -3k. And then -3 times -4 is, yes, +12. And k squared then, -4 minus 3 is -7k. And yes, we do have what we started with, and thus our answer is correct. Okay, number 4. How about x squared minus x minus 20? Okay, let's split the first term into factors, and I'd encourage you to try this on your own. Assuming you've tried splitting that first term into factors. So our answer really is going to look like this. It's going to have an x here and an x here. The question is, what is the number here and what is the number here? Well, let's split this into factors over here and find out. I'm going to move this over a little bit. So we have 1 and, well, so don't forget this. We have a -20 here, okay? So that means that it's going to be 1 and -20 that are multiplied together to get that. Okay, so don't forget that, 1 and -20. And then we have -1 and 20. That's another possibility. What else? We have 2 and -10. And then we have -2 and +10. And then we have 4 and -5. And then we have -4 and +5. And we don't have any more factors of -20. So which set here adds to this coefficient of -1? And I should probably put that here. Which ones add to -1? Okay, the -1 is right here. Okay, the middle term. Well, 1 minus 20, that doesn't. -1 plus 20, that doesn't. 2 minus 10, that doesn't. -2 plus 10, that doesn't. 4 minus 5, that does. So right here is, or are the two numbers that do add to this and multiply to this. And maybe you could have figured that out on your own just by looking and thinking of factors. Well, you could have asked what two factors of 20 are one number apart, because really the difference is going to have to be 1. So we have +4 and -5. So I'm going to put the +4 here and then the -5 right there. And we are almost done. We have to check to make sure that this is accurate by multiplying it out. X times x is x squared. X times -5 is -5x. 4 times x is 4x. And then 4 times -5 is -20. -5x plus 4x in the middle does give us a -1x, or just a -x, same thing, minus 20. And yes, this is the same thing that we started with. So we know that our answer checks. It's correct.